The competition at left guard is starting to heat up. Will Matt Hennessy lock it down, or will Matthew Bergeron step up when the pads go on?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So, guys, you know me. I'm Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. Sirius Black, and the very humble host of this illustrious Locked On Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast family, your team every day. And we thank each and every one of you that makes this illustrious podcast your first listen each and every day. Shout out to the everydayers. Follow in their footsteps by subscribing or following for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So as you guys can tell, if you're watching on your video screens, I am joined by none other than Jarvis Davis, the co-host of the ATL Day Ones podcast, also part of the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast family. It's been a minute since we've had Jarvis on the show, but you will be seeing Jarvis very frequently on this podcast, basically probably every week for the next 6 months as we do our Friday preview episodes, as well as the big one, the Sunday postcast, available on the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast, where we get to talk about all the things that happen each and every Sunday for this Atlanta Falcons team. But today we're talking about the things that are happening so far in training camp. We're only a couple of days in. Jarvis, you were out there for day one of training camp. And basically, I want to ask you sort of, what have you seen so far that stood out to you other than Arthur Smith's mustache?
Yeah, I was like, say, can we start with the porn stash? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, Arthur Smith has a new look. He's very confident in it. He said he's trying to spice things up. He's been married for 10 years. He want to give his wife a new look, man. Maybe he can get some returns on that investment. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a nice stash, man. But realistically though, I think one of the things that kind of stands out to me, but I wasn't too shocked that I saw it, was the fact that, hey, Matt Hennessy is rolling with the ones. Like, that's what it is. And to be honest with you, I'm not too surprised, because here's the thing. Arthur Smith is not going to give anyone anything. He's never been that type of guy. And when you have a guy like Matthew Bergeron, a guy they traded up for with the 38th overall pick in the second round of this year's draft, those are some of the things you expect. Like most teams, they'll kind of pencil that guy in as the starter, to as they get rolling in training camp. But no, Arthur Smith don't roll like that. He don't mind bucking conventional wisdom. That's how he rolls. He'll march to his own beat, his drum. So Bergeron is gonna have to earn it, man. And then let's kind of keep it funky, right? Like, the dude has never played the position before. His first time or getting some snaps at guard was at the Senior Bowl. So, those are some of the things that you have to kind of take in consideration when you're talking about learning a new spot. Then you coming in with a veteran offensive line, like, hey, how about that, man? A veteran offensive line, guys who've been playing together. We ain't got to talk about 2 or 3 positions being up for grabs like we did last year, 60%? Or, or up for grabs? Like, we're not talking about like that anymore. So now you have a veteran offensive line. You got some guys who got some starts up under their belt. And you got an all-pro caliber guard in Chris Lindstrom. Those are some of the things that you take in consideration when you're considering dropping a rookie in there who has never played the position before. So that was the main thing that kind of stood out to me when you talk about, okay, all right, how are they going to roll? How are they going to do it day one? And Matt Hennessy is out there rolling with ones until further notice.
Now, last year we got kind of 2 different versions when you talk about those competitions, right? We had, that left guard spot. Jalen Mayfield came out there day one with the ones, and then very quickly on day 2, it was Elijah Wilkinson, and it never switched back. But then you had the center position right next to him, where it was Drew Dahlman going up against Matt Hennessy, and they were basically swapping reps with the ones each and every day, to the point that we got all the way to week 1, and we still didn't know technically going into that week of practice, like, who is actually going to start for the Falcons at center heading into week 1. We thought it was going to be Drew Dahlman. It wound up being him, but we just didn't know at that point. So I'm just curious to pick your brain on this competition at left guard. Where do you sort of see it falling? Do you feel like this is going to be sort of that tight race like it was at the center position last year? Or is this an opportunity for someone like a Hennessy or Bergeron to take that left guard spot and run away with it like we saw Wilkinson do last year?
I think it's going to be, once we get the pads on, I think we'll get a really good indication as how this competition is going to go. Because at the end of the day, like I said, I really feel like Arthur Smith is going to make Bergeron earn it, but you're going to get a good feel once they put those pads on. Because, obviously with the NFL, you got a ramp-up period. I think it's 2 days of practice before they can put the pads on. So when Bergeron get those pads on, and you see those one-on-ones when the offensive lineman, defensive lineman kind of sneak off and goes down on the other end of the field, and they try to hide from us, I'm going to follow them. I'm going to have my binoculars, Aaron. I be following them out there like, y'all ain't about to run from me. I'm about to see all this. So I think if he shows well in that one-on-one period, because like I said, people think it's easy, easy transition when you switch positions like that, being that they're both of them on the left side of the field, offensive line, he played left tackle. Yeah, the footwork is pretty similar, but when you're talking about going from a guy you have about 3 to 4 yards of separation right as soon as the ball snap versus that dude is 1.5 yards to maybe 2 yards, that is a big difference. I know it's only a yard, but when you talk about the NFL, you're talking about guys being able to close that gap so quickly, especially when you got a guy like Aaron Donald or something like that. Those guys close that off so quickly, and everything is quicker. The reactions are quicker. The disengagement is quicker down there in that hole. So I think that once we get a good look at Bergeron, one-on-ones and going up against guys like Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata, he's going to get a good sampling of what he's going to be faced with once the season gets rolling. So I think once that happens, we'll be looking at, okay, if he kind of handles himself well, I really feel like it's going to be a real competition. But if he doesn't show well in those first couple of days, once they put the pads on, I feel like it's going to be Matt Hennessy and Bergeron going to find himself kind of, slowly easing into that role, maybe 2 or 3 games into the season.
Yeah. That's something that we've talked about here on this pod, which is, one thing that Arthur Smith doesn't do after that learning experience he had with Jalen Mayfield is he's not going to throw these rookies to the wolves. If he doesn't think they're ready to play, he's not going to put them out there and basically let the Aaron Donalds of the world tear them apart.
We'll need no turnstile.
Situation.
Yeah, got to get into the playoffs, man. Or at least be in a competition for it.
So, that's sort of what Jarvis's take is on what's going on in the trenches. We'll talk a little bit more about what Jarvis thinks about this Falcons secondary as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. And first, guys, I want to tell you about our partners over at eBay Motors who have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. And whether you're prepping for the draft or scouring the waiver wire every week, we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. So with draft prep underway, let's see who Vinny has picked out for us in this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. And when the top tier quarterbacks are off the board in your upcoming fantasy drafts this year, there's another line of luxury passers and runners that are guaranteed to fit in your starting lineups each and every week. And you're going to be looking at someone like Trevor Lawrence, who's going to be driving a much sleeker version of the Jaguars offense that is going to feature our good buddy Calvin Ridley over there. And that's going to give him top 5 scoring upside as a QB1. So you can expect Lawrence to keep living up to his immense arm and athletic talent and cruise to production that builds off of his hot finish from last season. And now that Vinny Iyer of Locked On Fantasy Football has helped us win our fantasy championships, eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. And the same goes with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it, and they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating. If your ride needs a little fixing up, because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. So, continuing today's Locked On Falcons here with Jarvis Davis of the ATL Day Ones podcast. Let's talk a little bit about the Falcons secondary. Now, all week long here on Locked On Falcons, we've been discussing sort of the big questions for the Falcons entering the season as well as training camp. And one of those that I wanted to get on the pod earlier this week was talking about the Falcons secondary, where the team has invested a lot more to upgrade the talent there this offseason, bringing in guys like Jessie Bates and Jeff Okudah, Mike Hughes, Clark Phillips, Trey Flowers, and more. And the question I have is the secondary going to be a strength moving forward? And I'm curious for Jarvis, where are your thoughts with this Falcons secondary at this point in training camp, as well as heading into this upcoming season?
I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that they have the potential to be one of the better secondaries. Is definitely in the division, because here's the thing, right? When you look at what Jessie Bates brings to the table, I know I was one pounding the table against that, right? Because when you think about value and positioning, we're having all the conversations about running backs and how they should be paid. Quiet as kept. Safeties are a position that people aren't as willing to pay as like they used to be, back in the day. So when you have a guy who's making $16 million annually, like, hey, a lot of expectations come with that. And I think that, looking at the situation with Cincinnati and how, they were able to come up, so to speak. And I think that, Terry Fontenot looked at that situation saying, hey, you know what? This is kind of a similar situation. I even asked Jessie Bates about that yesterday. He was talking about how, the division was kind of up for grabs. Nobody was really taking control of it. And then, you had a lot of young guys. You had some veterans, a good mixture of those guys on that defense, and they were able to figure things out, and they kind of grew together and became what they are right now, and made a Super Bowl run. So I think Jessie is kind of expecting the same thing when you come down to Atlanta. That was one of the reasons why he said he came down here. So with that, like, I really feel like I'm looking for what type of effect he can have on Richie Grant, because, Richie Grant took a step forward last year, I believe, playing and getting a lot of experience. And, of course, he still has some hiccups here and there, but you kind of got a peek into what, why the Falcons drafted him in the second round. So for now, I am really, really interested to see what type of effect Jerry Gray has, because Bates spoke very highly of him when you're talking about, like, hey, this guy played the game. Not only is he a really good coach, but he played the game and he really understands, hey, keep things simple. And I think that Bates is going to help be able to, spread that message throughout that secondary. And, like, here's the thing. Here's the big piece, though. If Jeff Okudah is able to give you solid play, because we saw what happened last year on the other side of AJ Terrell when he was in there. It didn't look good. It hasn't been good since Arthur Smith came in here. So I think right now, if you got a guy like, if you trade for a guy like Jeff Okudah, if you're able to at least get solid play, you don't need him to play like he was at Ohio State. All I'm looking for is solid play. Don't give up the big plays. If the guy catches the ball in front of you, make the tackle. I don't care how many yards you get. As long as you make the tackle, don't give up any big plays, because you got a little leeway back there with Jessie Bates, playing back there, playing the free safety, playing center field. So I think right now this secondary has some potential. I think it has a lot of potential. It's just a matter of Jeff Okudah playing solid, hey, something to prove on a prove-it deal, essentially, and AJ Terrell getting back to form as to what we used to seeing how he's playing. Like, he's an all-pro type guy. So we want to see that and remaining healthy. If everybody's able to remain healthy, I think this secondary has potential to be pretty good.
Yeah, I think I heard you and Tanisha talk about this on the Thursday episode of ATL Day Ones, which is today as we're recording this episode. How AJ Terrell's kind of been a fixture in that Falcons secondary the last couple of years, but It's just kind of been a revolving door at pretty much all the other spots in the secondary. They basically had two new starters at safety every year for the last 3 seasons. They've had a new starter opposite AJ Terrell at that outside corner. They've had Isaiah Oliver's kind of held the nickel cornerback spot down the last couple of years, but he's been in and out of lineup. And this year, he's in San Francisco, so there's going to be a new face there. So it is one of those things where you would like to get some of that stability that you're talking about, where you feel like, okay, AJ Terrell's probably going to be here for many more years, hopefully. Jessie Bates, is getting paid a lot of money, so he's not going anywhere anytime soon. And we got a couple more years with Richie Grant. on his rookie deal. Jeff Okudah is a free agent after this year, but as you're talking about, like, you're hoping that he plays well enough that we can sit there and say, okay, like, let's run it back with Jeff Okudah one more year. Feel good about that. And hopefully, whoever emerges as that nickel cornerback can also sort of stabilize that spot, especially when you have young guys like D. Alford and Clark Phillips who have a lot of growing to do over the next couple of years. So it is one of those things with the secondary where there's a lot of potential. It's a lot of young guys. Like, most of the guys in that room are 26 and under. So this could be a strength of this team for years to come. They just got to go out there and show it, on the field and live up to the lots of potential that this unit has with, multiple first round picks, multiple, day 2 selections and whatnot. And a big price tag on your free safety, one of the highest paid safeties in the league. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what the secondary can do. And as you say, Jerry Gray and Steve Jackson and this coaching staff getting the most out of these guys, I think it's going to be something intriguing to watch this season.
You know what? To be honest with you, man, like, I think you bring up an interesting point with the whole nickel spot, right? Like, I know a lot of people are saying, like, this is going to be a competition, but I really feel like D. Alford has built up a lot of equity with this coaching staff. I really feel like I think Terry Fontenot felt like he got him one. He got a steal. He found some good value with a guy like D. Alford. And I think that he's starting to build a lot of rapport, like those guys you just mentioned. You're talking about Jessie Bates, Richie Grant, AJ Terrell, Jeff Okudah. I think he's built up a pretty good rapport with those guys. And I feel like it's his job to lose versus it being an actual competition, because I think that, Mike Hughes is a guy, he's the reason why he's a free agent. But I think that if you have to put him in, I think he'll be okay, in that spot. But I really feel like the Falcons feel like they got something in D. Alford, and I'm interested to see how he performs with that, confidence that they have in him.
Yeah, definitely. And got to give love to Jaylinn Hawkins as well. Apparently got his second pick in 2 days in practice. Let's see if he can.
That's a hell of a third safety, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, we talk about depth on this defense, man. Like, we had this conversation. Well, can you name a time like that the Falcons secondary has been this deep? Like,
I want to say like 2018 when KZ and Neal and all, before all those guys got hurt. Yeah. And before we knew that Isaiah Oliver wasn't quite as good at outside, like when we were still buying
Rico, all those guys. Yeah, that was
Trufant and Alford hadn't quite fallen off at that point.
Solid,
that was a really good group, a secondary, and I'm hoping that we can get something similar to that moving forward, definitely. But we'll talk a little bit more with Jarvis here, talking about some players that he's going to keep his eye on as training camp unfolds. That has certain things to prove. So we'll get into that, guys, as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So wrapping up today's Locked On Falcons, before we get into it, I do want to give another shout out to the everydayers out there that tune in each and every day. Make sure you follow in their footsteps by subscribing or following for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So Jarvis, I know you're going to be, following the O-linemen and the trench players all summer long whenever you get the opportunity, sneaking your way onto the forbidden sides of the practice field.
Yeah, I'm bucking, man.
But in addition to those players, are there some other players that you're intrigued by that you're going to be keeping a closer eye on as this summer unfolds?
You know what, man? I think I got two names. One of them I already mentioned is I think I'm gonna start with Jaylinn Hawkins, because here's the thing, man. Like, a lot of people kind of like want to throw him to the wayside because of, Jessie Bates. I get it. Jessie Bates going to be the free. Richie was the free last year, so he moved down to the strong because, a second-round pick. I get it. You understand. But I really feel like Jaylinn Hawkins is going to be in a specialized role, maybe that big nickel packages. I think Ryan Nielsen is going to figure out a way to use him because the guy, he got a neck for the ball. I mean, that's what it is. He's always around, and people might want to say he's lucky. No, it ain't a coincidence that this dude can get his hands on the football. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on him and kind of see how he pushes his way onto the field, and I'm interested to see how Ryan Nielsen is going to use him. With that being said, like, it's pretty clear that Arnie Ebiketie He is going to get every opportunity to be successful because they are finding ways to get him on the field with the likes of Bud Dupree and Lorenzo Carter and David Onyemata and Grady Jarrett, right? So those, I think it's going to be some special packages implemented so he can be on the field on third down. Also, I really feel like there's going to be a lot of more pressure from that defense as well. Like, that's why I'm going to have my eye on Ryan Nielsen. I know he said players, but I'm interested to see how he's going to get all these guys on the field because, like you said, we talked about the depth in this secondary, and there are a lot of bodies up front. We're just kind of interested to see who will be those guys on third and long, and I think that Arnold Ebiketie has to be at least one of those guys on third and long that, hey, you know that 4-7, once that ball is snapped on third and long, you see 4-7 getting to the quarterback, and he has to this year. He has to convert some of those hurries into sacks.
Yeah, definitely. I know that was a hallmark of what Ryan Nielsen did in New Orleans, which is to have, a deep rotation. So early downs, you're seeing Carl Granderson and Trey Hendrickson out there just as much as, Cam Jordan and Marcus Davenport and David Onyemata. But when it gets to third and long, the money down, right? That's when the guys that are out there, the Cam
Those
Jordans
dudes,
of the
yeah.
world, the Onyematas and whatnot, that's where they make their money. And so the expectation, we know Grady's going to be one of those guys. We assume Onyemata is going to be probably that guy as well because he was that in New Orleans. And then it's just a question of, okay, which of these edge group, right? Is it going to be Campbell on one side? Is it going to be Ebiketie on one side? Is it going to be Bud Dupree on one side, or Lorenzo Carter or something like that? And so I agree with you. Those money downs, those third and down situations where you want to get your four horsemen out there to get after the quarterback. Who's going to be those guys, and do they ultimately get home at the end of the day? And imagine watching a Falcons game and it's 3rd and 10 or something like that, and the Falcons actually get a sack on that play. Like, when was the last time you asked me when was the last time we saw a good secondary? Like, when was the last time we saw that here in Atlanta?
Abe, 55 is the number that I remember. Like, that's the number that's embedded in my brain when you think about third and long, and that dude used to get down there like that little bear crawling type stance and a 4-point stance on third and long, man. And it was so cool kind of getting a chance to see him while he was out there in the spring, kind of keeping an eye on things, kind of see what the team is going on. But yeah, man, that's the last time I can remember a guy that at least you had one guy that for sure. Like, everybody else aside, like, we don't care about everybody else, but we know 55 is gonna get home. Like, he's gonna be dang close. And that quarterback better get rid of that rock because he is coming. And I think that's what I've been pounding the table for the past 10 years, man. It seems like I want to see somebody get home. Like, can we get somebody that can consistently get to the quarterback, please? I promise you, I'm going to laud you. I'm going to praise you. I might get a little weird and start acting like Aaron acts towards Bijan Robinson. You know what I'm saying? Like, turning water to wine, Mr. Walk on Water. We're going to give him a nickname on our show, right, Aaron? Bijan's name as of right now is Mr. Walk on Water. Like, that's kind of where we are. Can we get somebody like that on defense? Is Arnold Ebiketie going to be that guy? Because I promise you, you're going to get a lot of love, dude, on Sundays at 1 o'clock if you're able to get home on third and long. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see if he's getting a lot of love on the postcast this upcoming season, which Jarvis and I will have on lockdown each and every day immediately after the Falcons game. So check out Locked On Sports Atlanta to get into that. Jarvis, any parting words for the people? On today's episode, I don't know. The third segment things go off the rails at this point in time. So I'm just like, let's just drive this thing off the tracks right.
Can we talk about the stash for a second? Can we talk about the porn stash?
Okay.
Yeah, man. So, like, I'm like, I grew up in a household that you never cut off all your facial hair, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't, like, as a black man, you know what I'm saying, you can't be trusted if you cut off all your facial hair. You know what I'm saying? For those who don't know. Like, I like to invite everybody to this world, right? Here's in my world. So, like, when I first saw the mustache, I was just like, whoa, I was kind of taken aback. I was just like, man, Arthur Smith got the porn stash going on, you know what I'm saying? The little dirt diggler situation, And I'm sitting up here like, man, I wonder if his wife approves. And apparently, you know what I'm saying, she does approve it. You know, we haven't heard anything differently, so we're just gonna go with that. But yeah, man, like when you're making decisions, people, about your facial hair as a man, confer with your wife first, or your bae, or your girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever you're into. You know what I'm saying? Like, talk to them first, because you can't make decisions like that because you don't want your folks mad at you, you know, for the next couple of weeks or however long it takes to grow back. But yeah, solid decision by Arthur Smith, but it seems like he kind of, you know, consulted with his wife before he did it. And, you know what I'm saying? It seems like she embraced it and they are one. You know, they've been together for 10 years. So, hey, man, I appreciate a man that, you know, talks with his wife and before he makes big decisions. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, you know, at the end of the day, he does put his foot down. You know, we manly men around here. You know what I'm saying? But like, yeah, talk to your wife before you make those kind of decisions. Yeah.
Okay,
just my PSA for the day.
There you go, guys. Yeah, you know, I got nothing. I got no follow up to that. You know, you don't grow a mustache overnight. So, you know, at some point along the line, she would have put her foot down if, you know, she was not feeling it. And certainly she would have, you know, made her feelings be known at some point in time if she wasn't a fan of it. So, there you guys got.
Anything else?
No. Oh, good, man. Oh, good. All right. That's it, guys. We'll be back Monday to recap, you know,
Hopefully.
camp action. You know, if something major happens, some big breaking news, you know, we might do an emergency pod or something like that. But other than that, we'll give you some mustache updates on Monday, see what's going on with that. You know, keep an eye on
it's a lifestyle, man.
Yeah, you know, maybe he'll start getting the handlebar going and, you know, get the Hulk Hogan or whatever.
Curl them joints on. You know what I'm saying?
So
man.
We'll see, you know, we'll do a weekly critique of Arthur Smith's facial hair. Yes. Yeah, because you're right, Jarvis. You know, I know some people heard you say you can't be trusted if you don't have facial hair. Like, yeah, that is a very common statement. Like, you're probably like the 40th person that has said that to me in my lifetime. It's true.
It's real, dog. It's real. People look at you sideways. Why you cut off your facial hair? What's wrong with you? Are you sick? Did you just get chemo? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I haven't been clean shaven since 2016, I think, maybe. It's been a while. It's been a minute.
I can't even remember, dude. I can't even remember. I have no idea when.
And if I shaved it all off, then people would, you know, be like, "What's going on? You know, what's Aaron doing?" You know, like it's
like, is he okay?
Yes, it's like he's going through a midlife crisis. What's going on with him? You know, like that's how long it's been. So
just buy a sports car, man. Like, that's your hair off. That's my advice to all the men going through a midlife crisis, man. Don't cut your hair off. Just buy a sports car, man. You know, figure it out. Get you a used one. You'll find one for a decent price, I guess.
There you go. So, guys, if you want to get more life tips from Jarvis Davis, tune in to ATL Day Ones, Locked On Sports Atlanta. Check out Hitting Hard, as well as your second listen. Check out the Locked On NFL podcast. We'll be back on Monday to recap this weekend's action. You know, we'll have a couple of data points so we can notice any trends and whatnot, all that stuff. And hopefully, you know, we'll get a practice day without Desmond Ridder throwing interception. So tune in Monday to see if we get that.
Oh, God.